Parshas Vayetze really offers us some incredible insights that are unbelievably pertinent to what's going on in the world today. Even if you don't read the newspapers, and I'm not encouraging you to do so, because it's not sure how much you get from sort of this incredible slant that the newspapers give you, but you certainly have to be aware of what's going on in the world. A lot of ways of getting that information. And if you, in the least bit, see what's happening out there, and how like there's this incredible onslaught of accusations and admissions and apologies, and it's just unbelievable that all of a sudden everyone says this is the tip of the iceberg. What's going to be happening over the next few months is the uncovering of the fact that what's been perpetrated by these few individuals making the headlines is really something that's endemic to almost the natural flow of Congress, of Hollywood, and who knows what else it's the natural flow of. So for us a little bit to reflect about what's going on and what, as Torah Jews, what can we do to protect ourselves? And there are two concepts right in this week's parsha that I think are critical for us to appreciate and to understand. It's a classic word. I've said it many times, and I'll say it again because it's critical for us to know this and to hear this and to remember it. Can we put away all the reading materials? Thank you very much. Says the pasuk. You know this story. Yaakov works for Rachel for 7 years. He makes a deal with Lavan, and Lavan says, if you work for me for 7 years, I'll give you my daughter Rachel. There was a special connection, a special bond between Yaakov and Rachel. And he saw Rachel as being the one that he was going to build Klal Yisrael with. And he says, this is why this needs to happen. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And 7 years was a price tag that Lavan put on Rachel. It was a long time. And despite the fact that it took 7 years, what does the pasuk say about this relationship that Yaakov was working for Rachel, and all this time that went by before Yaakov was able to finally begin this process of building Klal Yisrael? Says the pasuk that Yaakov loved Rachel so much that in his love for her, the 7 years went by kiyomim achadim, like a few days. Now, Rabbi Say, this is not my question, but it's an obvious one that Rabbi Avrohom raises and sort of hits us right between the eyes with such an obvious question. Kiyomim achadim? You want to marry a woman and you have to work for her for 7 years before you can marry her? Does it make sense that those 7 years should go by kiyom achadim like a few days? Does that make sense? It should seem like eternity. I'm sure there are some people in the room who have a calendar near their bed who are marking off the days till the summer vacation. Okay, probably not a lot because you enjoy school so much, but probably some of you are marking off. I know if not the students, certainly the staff is doing that. I can tell you that. So, yeah. So, I'll give another shuz about the mock laugh that is really meant to do nothing but distract. But we won't get into that right now. So, shh. Hey, quiet. Thank you. Okay. That stuff goes out when you get your 8th grade diploma. So, shh. So, Rabbi Say, normally when you're waiting for something to happen and you're marking off the days, it seems like forever. When you're waiting for time to pass and you're anticipating an event, it seems like forever. How could the pasuk say something so counterintuitive to the reality of our experience in life? How does 7 years go by like a few days in Yaakov's desire to finally get married? It should seem like an eternity. And Rabbi Avrohom opens up our eyes to an important concept in the Torah. One rabbi say that even though you think marriage is decades, or it seems like decades away. It's not, surely not decades away, but it's in your mind it seems like it's who knows how far away. This is a concept you need now to internalize if you are to be successful in your married life and in general. But especially as it relates to this concept that Jews have of what a marriage is about. I remember getting a letter from a 9th grader who left America to go to Eretz Yisrael. And years after, he sent me a letter thanking for his experience in Valley Torah, even though it was just 1 year. But he said, thank you very much because my year in Valley Torah opened up my eyes to what marriage is about. It's a valuable lesson that I learned that hopefully I will take with me throughout my marriage. And Rabbi Loli Apiyan explains that you have to understand when the Torah says, in his love for Rachel, what does that mean? The word love, he says, is a word that's so misused in our vernacular. Because we use that word love in so many different contexts that does not define the Torah's definition of love. When we love sports, we don't really love sports. Not the Torah's definition of love. Do you donate to the NFL retired fund? Do you donate? Do you give money to the Major League Baseball players who are no longer active or are forced to retire? You love baseball? You love sports? Or do you just happen to like the excitement of watching an NFL game or a basketball game? So your love really is defined by what you get out of the experience. And he says people say they love fish. And he gives a wonderful example. And I happen to have thought, before I learned this particular chazal, I also thought I love fish. I love grilled salmon, I love trout, right? We love fish. Well, he says, wait a minute. A guy walks by a fellow near a restaurant and he says, I really love fish. So the guy says, oh, this guy loves fish. Let me see what's going to happen with this guy who loves fish. And he says he loves fish, and sure enough, a few minutes later, another guy walks out with a nice little jacket, and he puts on the table a nice plate of grilled salmon. He takes out his knife and his fork, and he puts it into the fish, and the guy's like, really? Really? You love fish? You're killing the fish. You had the fish grilled for your self-interest. You love fish. If you love fish, you want to know what loving fish is? You buy yourself a beautiful aquarium. You have yourself a bunch of fish, and they're all nice. And you feed them every single day. And you call this one Nemo, and that one Waldo, and this one Igor, and you got names for every one of them. And you spend all day by the aquarium, and you're taking care of your fish. That's a guy who loves fish. But a guy who orders a grilled salmon every single day and wolfs it down, that's not the guy who loves fish. He loves what fish does for him. And therefore the word love is being misused and abused. Because says Rabbi Apiyan, the word ahava, which is the word the Torah uses to describe love. We say every single day, love God. With all of your heart and all of your soul. Loving God does not mean what God is going to do for you. Loving God means what you can do for them, for Him. And loving a wife is what you can do for her. When we talk about ahava, Rabbi side, the word ahava comes from the word have, to give, to be selfless, to get out of yourself for somebody else. The reason why marriage is considered such a holy endeavor in Jewish life, it's called Kiddushin. Harei at mikudeshesli. It's a word completely foreign to the secular world. Secular world, you find yourself a wife, if you're lucky, it lasts 5 years. In Hollywood, it's lucky if it lasts 3 months. Till the next movie. Shh. Thank you. That's love? What you're willing to invest, to give to the person you're sharing your life with? Not from the secular point of view. From the Torah point of view, and this is again why it's so critical that we train ourselves now to understand why are women put on such a pedestal in Jewish life? Why is there a concept of the separation between men and women? Why is it such an important idea? Because that allows a Jewish man to have the true reverence of what a Jewish woman is about. I've shared this story many times, but it's a powerful concept that I heard from Rav Feldman from Nei Yisrael, who at the time was not the Rav, was not the Rosh Yeshiva of Nei Yisrael. But he was a Rav who came to Shaarei Tzedek to speak about socializing. And I was very happy and very excited because for the most part, here in the valley, if you ask people who's the one who's like sort of screams a lot about this socializing thing and not don't do this and don't do that, who's anti-socializing? Well, very often I'm associated with this concept of anti-socializing. In fact, I was once introduced in camp by an old friend of mine to the head of the OU. He says, I want you to meet Rabbi Stulberger, the man who single-handedly is fighting NCSY in California. And I said, excuse me. And he was just trying to be funny. He's a good friend, but I just said, I'm not fighting NCSY. I'm fighting Valley Torah kids going to NCSY. NCSY is a great organization. If you want to be Makar public school kids, I'm all for it. I'll back you 1,000%. When you're trying to draft our kids into a co-ed situation, that's a different story. Why? So, sure enough, it was a Friday night. Rav Feldman spoke in Shaarei Tzedek, and I said, listen, finally someone's going to speak about social issues. He didn't really talk about socializing per se, but there was a question and answer session afterwards. So he spoke about marriage. It was a beautiful talk, wonderful schmooze. And now there was a chance for question and answers. So I raised my hand, sitting in the back, and I say, Rabbi, how do you answer the people who argue that you have to have boy-girl relationships in high school? Otherwise, you're not going to be comfortable to find your right spouse. You're not going to know how to speak to a girl. You're not going to know how to speak to a boy. So let's have them socializing now during high school so they can be ready for their married life. And was I happy when he ripped me to shreds? Boy, was I happy. And everyone was running, they sort of thought that I planted, that was like, we planted the whole situation, but I didn't tell him I was going to be asking this question. So I didn't discuss this with him beforehand. And in a very respectful way, he said, "Shait of us to bist." What kind of ridiculous? I think he knew that I wasn't really asking on my own, but the point is he ripped me to shreds because he says that's a ridiculous argument. And we actually the seniors heard a video that actually supported that same notion. Not that Rav Feldman needs anybody's support, but a young kid in Eretz Yisrael giving a shmooze about Shlomo Negia said the exact same idea. It's an obvious idea for those people who are willing to be honest, willing to look in the mirror and say exactly what's really going on. And what he said was, that's exactly the opposite thing you should be doing. Because when you start developing relationships as teenagers, what's on your mind? What's a boy thinking about? And if you don't know, I'm not suggesting you take a look at any of these TV, teenage sitcoms on Nickelodeon or Disney Channel or anything else, but if you ever theoretically bumped into one of them along the way, you would confirm there's one thing on a boy's mind when he's 14, 15, 16, or 17. When he's going out with a girl, there's one thing on his mind. When he's interacting, the physicality cannot be removed from what he's thinking about. So what are you training yourself in all your relationship with girls through teenage years? What you're doing is you're training to think about them the same way the advertisers want you to think about them when they put one on the next to a liquor bottle on a billboard. Or they want to sell some car or something, and what do? Why is that girl next to this car and scantily clad? What's the idea? The idea is, because she's nothing more to us in American society, unfortunately, and we're seeing it in the headlines every single day, that it means for our self-gratification. And that is the exact opposite of the Torah's point of view of a Jewish woman. To us, a Jewish woman is up there in some holy stratosphere. She's the Akeres Abayis. She's the anchor of a Jewish home. She brings Kedusha into the home. You want to reduce her to some physicality? You want to make her like some kind of picture on a billboard to sell whatever you want to sell? Chas v'shalom. So Rav Feldman says to me, and he's explaining this concept, that we have to develop the idea that a Jewish woman has to be revered. And your relationship with her has to be one that you are ready to give to her, not get something from her. Not think about what am I going to get, and that's what people unfortunately who are dating and hanging out and partying and doing all this garbage, what are they thinking about? How far am I going to go? What am I going to get? It's not love. It's self-indulgence. And that's what this world is full of, and that's what's happening in Congress, in the halls of Congress, when you have a little bit of power, when you're a hotshot Hollywood mogul, and you have a little bit of power to use that power in your self-gratification. Well, how do you look at a woman? Well, complete disdain. Respect her? Revere her? Huh, she's there for me. For me to just get my kicks and just have a good time. If I abuse her along the way, well, that's a side, very sad byproduct. I apologize publicly after 20 years of improprieties and just hope I can get away with it. To a Jewish man who gets it, who has followed the Torah rules, that can't happen. Because the Torah rules are geared to this idea that there's a special bond between a husband and wife. And that bond is unshakable because it's been loyal and true. I'm not comparing my wife in a Jewish mind's thinking to anybody else because there is nobody else to go. I haven't been through the rigmarole. I haven't been through who knows what, my high school years. So now you're truly ready to commit yourself to one person for the rest of your life. Because this is not about self-gratification. This is about the ultimate endeavor of giving of yourself totally to the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. But I say you can't get that in the outside world. That concept doesn't exist in the outside world. I dare say if you poll the outside world, what's the number one factor in who you're going to marry? I didn't look this up, but I would venture to say, it's what she looks like. To a Jewish man, obviously attraction is very important. Of course it's on the list. But that's number one on your list? Number one? So that's the first one I'm going to go to. So I'm going to find somebody in a laundromat because she's very pretty. I'm going to say, hey, that's a woman I'm going to marry? Ridiculous. Common values. Her midos. How is she going to raise my children? How are we going to build a beautiful Jewish home together? Of course you're attracted to her. But mostly you're attracted to who she is as a person. And that's what you're really looking at. You're not going to get that from the Senate and the Congress. You're not going to get that by immersing your brain in the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, depraved as it is. You get that because you look at the Parshas Vayetze, and you see that Yaakov Avinu, because he gave to Rachel, says the pasuk, because he was invested in Rachel, because he was building already for those 7 years that home. He was planning on it already. Says the pasuk, in his love for her, those days went by very fast. Because when does time fly? When you're involved, when you have a plan and you're excited. When you're doing something and you're immersed in something very, very fascinating and you're passionate about it, then time flies. So Yaakov is so already, from the very inception, building and giving in a Torah way, that those 7 years went by, like just a few days. There's one other point I want to share with you, which fits fits the same concept of what Torah values are about. And again, I'm not telling you you should read the gory details of what's happening. I'm afraid you know it anyway. But it's amazing how when, at the end of the parsha, it comes time to go, Yaakov comes to his two wives and he says, listen, your father's not looking at me the same way. Things are getting a little messy over here. I got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. What do you think? And the two of them basically answer, yeah, it's really a problem. Our father's not really going to really take care of us. He doesn't really care about us. So I understand we need to go. What's strange is that God told Yaakov to go. And God told, and the women knew that God spoke to Yaakov that it's time to go. And the women, as almost like an afterthought, said, yes, and God said it's time to go, so let's go. So I ask you, Rabbi, why would you go through all the argumentations about Lavan and this and that and all the cheating and all the stuff going on? It's very simple. God says to go, you go. It should have been literally a 10-second conversation. Yaakov says, God spoke to me, and he said, we got to go. And the women answer back, God says, they were holy people. They had no questions. If that's what God said, that's what you do. So why have the whole speech about Lavan, and he's not looking at me the same way, he's been cheating me, and the women go through a whole diatribe about, it's been problematic, and he's not going to care, doesn't care about us, we're not going to get anything from him anyway, I get it, and God said to go, let's go. Cut right to the chase. God says to go, go. Rabbi say the answer given by the Bali Musar is because there's a very simple idea of how we have to approach life. And you can use this in many different ways. But even though God says, at the end of the day, why are we Jews? And why do we keep the Torah? Because God said so. Absolutely. To a very, very strong Jew, that is bottom line the reason. In the year 2448, there was an event called Maimon HaSinai, and we know it and we do it. But day by day, if you want to be the best Jew you can, that's really not going to fuel you the maximum way. The best way to fuel yourself is to minimize the nisayon, to be mocked in the nisayon, make it a little bit easier. And if you know why you're doing something, if you appreciate the concept behind what you're doing, it's going to make it a little bit easier. So God says to go, it's go. But then we're going to go. But you know what? I'm making $1 million a day. Things are rolling here so well. It's tough. But if it's not going well, and I got frustrations everywhere I turn, and our father is cheating us, that makes it easier to go. Means you make it easier. You make life easier for yourself. You try to find situations that put you in a better chance for success. So when you think about serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when you look at the beauty of being a Torah Jew, and all the benefits that come from being connected to God, that makes it easier. Is that really the reason? Let's say it wasn't so advantageous. We'd still have to do it. But as a Jew, we have to be mocked in the Nisayon. Make it easier. You know how we're mocked in Nisayon, Rabbi say? That's what the rabbis had in mind when they gave us laws. When they gave us laws, they were trying to make it easier for us not to do the big things. If you look at what's been going on in the world today, of all these headlines, all these apologies, all these situations, if you ask these people, if you ask Charlie Rose, what are you doing going over the reports 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night in your hotel suite? What are you doing? And now you have to sit there and apologize and be the brunt of total embarrassment, and 30 years of your career has now been flushed down the toilet in utter disgrace? Fired by every organization and every company that he's associated with? Had you just lessened the test? What are you doing there? You want to go over the news? Go over the news in an office with it properly. If you follow the laws which the Rabbanan gave us, if you're mocked in the sun, don't push the envelope. I don't need it. I'm good. I'm good. I can walk into that party. No one's going to affect me. How many times have I heard that over the years? Well, it was a birthday party. I had to just say, happy birthday. Yeah, so how come 2.5 hours later you were still there? Why did the sirens, when the cops showed up, be the thing that forced you out of there? How many games we play with ourselves where we say one thing and we really know something else? Because we're not ready to look at the truth and say, hey, follow the laws of Yichud. Follow the laws of Shoman Hagiah. Follow the laws of what the rabbis directed us to say, and some of them actually are Torah laws, but let's just even keep it as rabbinic laws. You stay away from fire. You're not a fireman trained to run into the fire. You smell smoke, you get away from there. So what are you doing? I'm just going to have this relationship. I mean, it's a joke. How many times people, when you get to 20, 21, you finally admit there's no such thing as a platonic relationship. Could we cut the baloney and stop fooling ourselves? The Torah is telling us, I'm telling you the way it is. You want a happy marriage? Develop a mentality that women have to be revered. Don't look at them like, God forbid, a piece of meat. Revere them. Honor them. Understand that they're special and holy, not to be reduced for your self-gratification. You can only do that by staying away from them. Not because they're bad. Not because, ooh, I can't, you're a girl, get away from me. God forbid. Because they're so special, because they're so holy, because they have been reserved for that one special Jewish man to spend the rest of her life with. How do I come along and reduce her to something so subhuman? That's the concept. And therefore, as you go through your teenage years, everybody, I learned that lesson. Mocked in his own. Lesson that test. Don't put yourself in that situation. So between the concept of what true love is about, it's not about slicing a piece of fish. It's about what you can give to that endeavor. If you adopt the approach of Rachel and Leah and Yaakov Avinu, of lessening the challenges to make your success a better bet, a better chance, because Hashem, we will be able to rise to the occasion, to develop those attitudes that the Torah wants us to develop, to be able to move into a situation years down the line when you come to a marriage where you truly are looking at this special, incredible lady that you're about to commit your life to, out of a sense of respect, true understanding of what an Eish Chayil or what a Bas Yisrael is all about. Praise Hashem, and that's because we'll all have happy homes and happy marriages, and Bizoch the Bias Meshachim Hevi.